Professor Alison Young, thank you so much for joining the Daily Aus.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Can we start by explaining who Banksy is and why people care so much when he unveils a new artwork?
That's a really interesting question. He started out as someone who was tagging, a graffiti writer. They were very appealing to the public, and he became the best known stencil artist in the world. And then the late 80s, his work became incredibly successful within the established art world and selling for six figures and more around the world. He's a bit of a puzzle because he started out as the thing that many cities hate, which is a tagger. And then he became one of the most significant contemporary artists.
And how often these days does he unveil new artwork?
It's pretty rare. People get very excited when a new Banksy appears on the street. And we've seen in recent days crowds of people in London lining up to photograph this new artwork. My son is actually there at the moment. And yesterday I sent him on an expedition to go and take photographs for me. So he messaged the photos home last night. And there are crowds of people trying to take the picture through the fence that's now been put up around the artwork, and people queuing to get a chance to take a picture of the artwork without the fence in the foreground. So it's something that hasn't happened probably for a year since there's been a verified Banksy in London or in the UK.
And one of the most fascinating things about Banksy is the fact that he is anonymous. And what I'm intrigued about is the fact that his artwork is in these very public places. So how is he able to put the art up without the general public ever catching him? It just suddenly appears overnight.
Yeah, it's quite a puzzle. He now can afford to have a team of people who help. So people who act as lookouts, who identify a location where it's going to be possible to work uninterrupted for a few hours overnight, and who are there to assist if there's a problem. So they've honed their skills in that respect.
Let's talk about his identity. We know very little about who he actually is. What do you know about his identity?
Obviously, many people have met him and who know exactly who he is, but there's a kind of commitment to keeping the secret, if you like. The people who want to know who he actually is and what his address is, they tend to be the tabloid media and probably the police. And so lots of people don't want to be like that. And so they're committed to the idea of the pleasure that not knowing who he is gives everyone.
I'm really fascinated by this idea that it's this open secret within the arts culture and that they're all committed to keeping his identity a secret. Can you talk more a little bit about that and how it is this open secret and why they're so committed to keeping it that way?
Banksy's probably a little bit like a CEO of an organization now, but just an anonymous one. But there are many people that work for him and with him. So galleries, museums. He has an authentication service. He has an agent. He has someone that interacts with the media on his behalf. And this is like an example of a kind of unwritten law within street art community that if someone wants to stay anonymous, you should respect it. Otherwise, you're kind of on the side of the authorities rather than on the side of the artist.
Are you amazed in this day and age with the internet and everything that his identity has, for the most part, remained a big secret?
I think it's pretty impressive, yes. There have been attempts to unmask him. The Daily Mail newspaper in Britain and various other people have claimed to be Banksy or to know who it is. It's quite an achievement, 20 years of anonymity. It's hard to imagine, really, but he's achieved it.
Do you know why he is so committed to keeping it a secret?
I think two things. One is that he is a very clever business person as well as a very talented artist. And I'm sure it's so part of the mystique adds value to the artworks when they are being sold. So I think it's a good business move. But I think also he doesn't really want it to be about him. So the anonymity helps him have a life separate from the artwork. And if he was unmasked, then that would all be ruined in a way. And then it becomes about this person who's been doing this work for 20 years rather than us all enjoying the artwork for its own sake.
Let's talk about his art. Why do you think Banksy's art is so popular?
It's very clever. Like, it helps. Like, if you look at one of his artworks, there's an experience of going, oh, that's interesting, that's clever, that's funny. So with the current one, which is green paint sprayed by fire extinguisher on a wall with a stencil of a woman holding the fire extinguisher next to it. And it's designed to be viewed from a particular angle where you see you see through a leafless tree to see the green on the wall behind. So it becomes a kind of comment on nature and culture, and you can spend a little bit of time trying to work out, does it have a message and what is it? So I think it's a sort of it's a depth to the artworks that just cute or funny pictures don't have. And he's always had a bit of that political layering to his work where you can comment on various issues into it if you want.
Can you talk more about that political messaging that is a common theme in his artwork?
He set up a hotel in the West Bank. So, the walled off hotel, like not a play on the word Waldorf, which is a luxury hotel in New York, but he opened a hotel filled with his artwork in an area that was walled off from other places. So he's making a comment there on segregation of the Palestinian people in the West Bank. He also created an artwork in London, which was about the prevalence of CCTV in London. So that was called One Nation Under CCTV. And he's made work that comments on the buffing or removal of artwork from the streets. He's made work that comments on climate change. Critics might say that it's all a bit superficial, like makes one comment on one issue and moves on. But I'd like to think that he's just interested in a lot of different things and feels a responsibility to use his platform in a way that stokes debate.
And what do you think is next for him? Do you think he'll ever reveal who he is?
It would be funny to imagine like one of those television shows that do like, who do you think you are? Or things like that. If Banksy was on one of those shows, that could be very funny. As long as it stays in his interest to remain anonymous while he's making art. I quite like the idea that it could be a secret that could be kept indefinitely.
Professor Young, thank you so much for joining the Daily Aus.
You're very welcome.